Good morning and welcome to the Today Show. I'm your host, Corey Cartmill, and today we have secured an exclusive interview with the ghost of Marie Antoinette, one of the previous queens of France and Navarre. Good morning, Marie. Thank you for joining us today. Our viewers are extremely excited about our interview with you. To start, could you please tell us a bit about your childhood?
I was born an Austrian princess in Vienna on the 2nd of November 1755. I was the 15th child in my family. Unfortunately, my dear father died when I was only 10 years old. When I was 15, I married a complete stranger in Versailles, a gentleman who I have never met, the future King of France, Louis XVI.
Why did you marry this stranger?
It was a marriage arranged by my mother, the powerful Habsburg Empress Maria Theresa, to strengthen the new alliance between the French and Habsburg thrones. My mother promised me my hand in marriage to Louis XVI, the future King of France.
What happened after you married Louis XVI?
Shortly after I married Louis, I had to move all the way over to France to live with him, which was a big journey for a young lady like myself. I then lived in France for the rest of my life.
So how was your marriage with Louis?
Well, Louis and I were very different. Louis was quite withdrawn, and I enjoyed socializing and had very extravagant tastes. I loved to buy beautiful clothes and jewelry, hold lavish parties, and gamble. The French were always resentful of my extravagant spending. We were married for 7 years before we finally produced our first heir to the throne.
How many children did you have with Louis XVI?
I had 4 children with my husband Louis. Their names were Marie Therese, Charlotte of France, Louis XVII of France, Louis Joseph Dauphin of France, and Princess Sophie Helene Beatrice of France. Unfortunately, Louis XVII and Sophie died at a young age.
Did you ever have to move away from Versailles?
Not long after the storming of the Bastille in June of 1791, Louis, myself, and the family had to flee to Paris.
Why did you have to flee to Paris?
The move to Paris was for our own safety. The French citizens believed I was a traitor and that we were conspiring against them and that I was doing everything I could to undermine them. We were blamed for the economic crisis and financial ruin of France at that time.
Did you then stay in Paris for the rest of your lives?
Shortly after we moved to Paris, we escaped to the Austrian border and troops helped return us to the throne and restore power of the monarchy.
Did your lives improve when you returned?
Not really. In 1792, a group in France known as the Jacobins decided to test our loyalty to the French by declaring war on us in Austria. But the French army was in a terrible state, so the war failed and I was blamed for it not going well.
So what happened during the terror that led to your execution?
Oh, it was a dreadful time, something I would rather forget. My dear Louis was put on trial for treason in December of 1792, and then executed in January of 1793. I was arrested that same year for crimes against the French Republic. I was also accused of sexual abuse and incest against my own son. I was then convicted of treason in July of 1793 and beheaded by the guillotine. That's why I'm only a head. 40,000 royalist prisoners were executed after me. I was only 37 years old at the time of my death.
And finally, for the viewer's interest, could you please tell us your full name?
Maria Antonia Josepha Joanna von Habsburg Lothringen.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you today, Marie. Thank you so much for joining us.